Justin Wilk, and we're going to finish CE.2b, historic documents that help shape our nation. The one we left off with was the Articles of Confederation. I wanted to put a little more emphasis on these because there's a couple key components you need to know about basically our first form of government. So again, some key things you do need to know, and we've already been talking about this stuff, is a constitution is a detailed written plan for government. Lays out how our government's going to work and the various branches and their functions and their responsibilities. Another key word you need to know this unit is the term bicameral. Bicameral means we divide up the legislative branch into two houses. Our upper house is called the United States Senate, made up of 100 members, proportionally 2 per state. The other body is the House of Representatives, which is proportionally based on the state's population. There are 435 members divided amongst the 50 states, California having the most. Okay? So, a little background. Our first colonial constitution was established January 1776. By 1780, all the original 13 colonies had their own constitution. The overall goal was to unite the states against Britain for independence. Okay. So, some of the characteristics of these individual state constitutions: all the legislative branches, were bicameral, meaning 2 houses. The members were chosen by different means, meaning previously, before an amendment was ratified in this country that made senators popularly elected by the people, the upper body was elected by the state legislatures. The House of Representatives was elected by the people. All had a governor as the executive of the state, all had judges, and most of them contained a set of Bill of Rights. Remember the other day we talked about George Mason and his Virginia Declaration of Rights. So, if each state had their own type of government, why did we need to create a national government? Why have an overarching goal of uniting all 13 separate constitutions together? So, states came together to meet in what we call the Continental Congress, and this was created in, of course, 1777, the year after we declared our independence, and they came away with what we call the Articles of Confederation. This was our first attempt at a national government. So the Articles of Confederation, I kind of compare it to like the Justice League. Each state has their own unique quality and skill to it, but together, the power of the Justice League is supposed to trump an individual superhero's powers, right? Okay, states unfortunately did not unite under really a single country. Unfortunately, they worked independently, and so this body was kind of shaky. This whole articles, one house legislature that was established nationally, and each state, no matter what their population size was at the time, New York was a behemoth of a state with population. Virginia was as well. They also had a single vote. So, the powers under the Articles, again, shaky, as you see here in the original 13 colonies. This, again, was our first attempt to unite and unify all these states together under one body. I mean, you have 13 collective states, put away some of our own individual egos, and create one national government, one federal system of government. Unfortunately, this system persisted for about another 10 years. The powers, though, were kept with these states, and this is going to be problematic in the future, and I'll tell you why. Again, so the individual identity of the state still trumped the national government, so state rights were higher than federal rights. So there were 3 major problems with the Articles that we found out during the next 10 years of our nation's history. One of the first primary problems is the lack of the ability to raise money. And that's complicated because when we talked in class about what tax revenue does for our nation, it's very important when it comes to public work projects and stuff like that. So there was no national federal power to tax. Actually, the federal income tax didn't come for many, many years later. No power to regulate trade, okay? So states kind of set up their own method, their own system. Every state had their own type of currency, which meant like your money was printed differently in New York than it was in Connecticut. Congress had no way to enforce the laws. Again, the states were the trump card. They had the final say over policy. So technically, if a state wanted to charge another state unfairly for their goods they exported, they could. There was no lack of central power to direct policy and settle disputes. There was no national body, no national executive like the president today. Every state had 13 individual governors who all thought they were the most important individual. So no single leader to direct policy. That's what the president does today with his cabinet and group of advisors. No national court system, so no Supreme Court. Every state had their own kind of laws and their own system of working things out. Unfortunately, it was very complicated. There was no unified overall federal power governing the states. Unfortunately, also, the rules were too rigid. Very strict ways to change things. In order to pass any type of national law, you had to get 9 of the 13 states to pass the law. In order to change any of the national articles, all 13 states had to approve. And many of you probably realize how difficult it is just to get family members to all agree on things. So imagine 13 different states with various interests. The southern states were more regionally close to the farming and the fields and the land, whereas the northern states did not have the territory and the fertile soil for that, so they were more concerned about urban issues like the major cities and trades and stuff like that. Very difficult to get anything accomplished. So this, again, the 3 major weaknesses: lack of power for money, lack of a central government, and the rules were too rigid. You couldn't get anything done. So again, this is what eventually led to, again, a readjustment of what we thought were going to be a meeting in Philadelphia to tweak and change the Constitution. Change the articles, I should say. But what came out after that very hot summer and scorching summer in Philadelphia was today's current Constitution. We'll talk about that another day. So I hope you understand that the Articles, again, were our first attempt at a national government. However, all powers were resided and maintained with the individual states, causing some major weaknesses which were just summed up.